This is my lecture on evidence photography, documenting evidence at a crime scene. So this is where the professionals, crime scene professionals at work, or just entertainment or reality. These guys are all imitators. These are not actual crime scene people who process crime scenes. They have no clue. They have no background, no experience. They don't understand and appreciate the knowledge and skill that it takes to do these jobs. They expect that all these people have all of these different expertise, and they don't by a large degree. The goals of this class are to make you a better documentary photographer. This skill and ability is transferable to many different applications. Crime scene documentation is just one of them. You can use this for other things as a documentary photographer. When you go to work for a police department, each police department will have its own SOP. That's a standard operating procedure. They explain to you how they want things done and the policies and procedures that you have to follow to policies and procedures that you have to use when you're doing the job so that all of the evidence that you document can be used in court. How to document a crime scene. I believe in starting out from very outside. I assume that your judge and your jury are populated by people who look like me. They are 65 years old or older, and they have nothing but time on their hands, and this is the best thing that has ever happened to them. They were looking forward to see how things happen in a courtroom as opposed to what they see on TV. So I figured that you need to take them to this crime scene from the very beginning, which is the street signs and or a monument close to your crime scene, so that you can establish where you're starting from. Then you need to go to the actual crime scene, and you need to get overall pictures describing where this crime occurred. I want pictures from multiple angles of the exterior of the crime scene. Whether it's a house or a business makes no difference. I need a number on the building so that I know the exact location, what we're talking about. After you've done that, then you go and contact the person in charge of processing the crime scene. Find out what they want. You get the basic idea of what happened here. You need to know what type of crime we're talking about. Where was the entrance and the exit? How did they exit the crime scene? What direction did they go? Then you go in and remove all people from the crime scene. You take over. I don't care if it's the mayor or the chief of police. I don't care who it is. You ask them all to leave. You capture overall pictures of the entire crime scene. This goes from the bathroom to the broom closet to all of the bedrooms. I take pictures diagonally across each and every room in the crime scene. These are overall pictures showing the scene as found and not moving in and doing detailed pictures of the evidence that could be found. That's later in the process of documenting a scene. After you've done that, then you get together with the person in charge and you do a walkthrough through the scene, establishing your game plan as to what you're going to document. You identify the pieces of evidence that you're going to document, and you locate them in the crime scene. You use numbers or letters to identify the different evidence items in the crime scene. If it has a number or a letter, it must have a scale. I will explain to you later in this lecture about the use of numbers and letters and scales. When you're taking pictures of a crime scene, you need to be very careful when you get something that is half in sun and half in shade. The difference between the light and the dark are beyond the ability of your camera to capture the pictures. Your eyes adapt back and forth, and you don't even know what's happening, and you can see into the shade and into the bright sunlight. Your camera can't do that. When you get these big differences in light and dark, you need to use what's called fill flash. That means that you use the flash on your camera, Or you have to make a decision as to, do you want detail in the shadow area, or do you want detail in the brightly lit area? Here is a picture showing how it looks, this where you're getting picture with open shade, with shade and bright sun in the same picture, and you can see the area in the bright sun, but the area that's in the shade, you can't identify the objects and see what's going on there. It's a poor picture. The picture in the lower right shows the same exact situation, but you use a fill flash, and that allows the camera to capture a picture with a balanced light level in the foreground, and the background is outside in bright sunlight. This is what I want you to do in my class. This is a picture documenting a crime scene. One of my students in this class documented this. There's a mock crime scene of a residential burglary that was interrupted. This is a beautiful example of open shade. There is no roof over this archway, and so there's just blue sky up there, and you get what I call open shade. You can see that it's a nice, soft, even light, and these are multiple angles. These are multiple images showing overall and medium pictures of this crime scene. These are close-up pictures with numbers and identifying the different elements in the crime scene. You need to have scales in your pictures so that you know what the size is of your actual object in the scene. Without a scale, you don't know how big the object is in the scene. And the general rule is the scale needs to be larger than what you're capturing a picture of, so that you can be able to bring it back up to actual size for comparison purposes. There's a great variety of different scales available out there. They come in different sizes, shapes, and colors. Make good use of all of them. Sometimes you need the different colors because the background is the same color as the scale, and you can't see the scale in the crime scene. You need a steel tape sometimes for taking pictures of evidence, such as shoe prints and tire tracks, where they are large, and so you need a yardstick or a steel tape to be able to get the scale up to big enough size so that you can reproduce the evidence item up to true size. These are examples of student work of evidence found at a crime scene. You see that the scale is placed with the gun up in the upper left so that you can document the gun there, so that you can, with the L scale properly placed, and the number 1 so that you know what the weapon is and the proper size. The same thing is true of the glove in the right. I do prefer that you put little dots in there and put the numbers in the dots on the scale. But this is a nice tight picture. The one in the lower left, number 2, that's a fingerprint. The number in there is wonderful. I wish this person would have moved in a little closer so we could have gotten more detail. And the one on the right, A, same thing. You need to move in and get greater detail. You need to be sure that you are getting parallel to what you're taking a picture of. Those circles and those rectangles on those scales are there for a purpose. If the circle is not round, then you are not parallel to the object you're taking a picture of. The back of the camera needs to be parallel to the object you're taking a picture of, so that the circle or the rectangle is the same shape as the scale. I have introduced this into my class. If you're collecting evidence, then you need to have a number with each and every object that you're collecting and booking. And if there are evidence items that you cannot collect and book, then we use letters. That way you have them organized and you are looking for evidence that hasn't been collected, and it makes your job a lot easier. These are student pictures. Again, I would prefer that the numbers be up in the upper right-hand corner of the scale so that it's plenty big enough, and get tight so that you get a large picture of the evidence item with a number. Here's an example of student work where they have taken pictures of this evidence item found at a crime scene on a seat out there in a park area where you can't see the evidence for the background. What you do in this case is you take this picture, you take a picture for this overall medium close-up showing the location of this evidence item you have found, and then you pick it up and you move it over to a background that is not so busy and distracting. My favorite backgrounds are cement. They are 18% gray. They work beautifully. And the other thing that I like a lot are brown paper bags that we used to be able to get at the grocery store. And you can get them now, but you have to ask for them. This is the crime scene from hell. This is what, now, if you find yourself in this situation where you've got all these evidence items on this very, very busy background, again, what you do is you take pictures of each and every item as found on this evidence, this very busy background as possible. You're not going to be able to do that. You've got handprints, bloody handprints and such. You're going to have to work your way around this and break these into small pieces and separate them out so that you can get good pictures to identify all the evidence items. These are pictures of a mock crime scene by one of my students. Now, these are examples of what they did in class for me that I asked them to do to create a mock crime scene and then document it. This is not an actual crime scene. These are overall establishing pictures showing this mock crime scene. Great picture on the left, giving me an overall. There's a victim down the hallway here in the tub. There's a knife in the foreground. And we've got great overall and medium close-ups. Then we move in. We're in the bathroom. You can see the evidence items on the ground here. There's evidence items up on the shelf near the sink. Good overall pictures establishing, showing where these evidence items are. Real-world evidence documentation. This is much like an earlier example where you find yourself trying to take pictures of something that is on a very busy background. Here are some items that I use. I carry around a piece of gray fabric for a background, and sometimes the container, the thing on top of the background there is a water bottle, and I cut the top out of it, the bottom out of it, and I can use that as a diffuser. I put my lens through the water bottle and have this in a bright area, and then I have a small object and I can take pictures of it. But you don't take pictures in very busy backgrounds. Here is the same object. It's in the bright sunlight. Bright sunlight is not your friend. You don't want to be taking pictures in the bright sunlight. It's okay, but it's not wonderful. Here's a picture and illustration of how to take a picture of a ring. You find a ring at a crime scene. One of my little tricks that I have learned is to use a paper clip to stand up a ring like this so that you can take a picture of it. The picture on the left, the ring is standing up on the paper clip and the scale is below the surface that you're taking a picture of. The picture on the right, the scale is brought up to the same level as the ring. This is what you want to do, and this is how you document something like that. And here are two pictures, one in the full sunlight on the left, and the other one captured in an open shade. This is a example of oblique lighting. This is where you have your scale, and you take your light source and you move it down to an area slightly above the level of what you're taking a picture of, this impression evidence. In this case, footwear impressions, so that you can see the detail in the footwear. Here, this person did not use the proper methods to take pictures of this footwear. This is one picture with a light directly above showing this footwear print. You need to take pictures with the scale in here. You need to have a tripod and your camera on it, like this. And you see that the photographer here is down, has his camera upside down on his tripod, parallel to what he's taking a picture of. But he's taking pictures in the bright sun. What you need to do in this situation is you need to find the largest police officer in the vicinity and have them come over and cast their shadow over this piece of impression evidence so that the light level is low enough so that your flash can improve and give you the light needed so that you can document the impression evidence there, either shoe print or tire track. You need to move your light source around at 4 different angles so that you can get the best possible angle. And my other little secret that I do is I have a mini mag light that I will attach to the flash unit so that I can move the flash unit and the flashlight up and down to find the optimum light level so that we can get the highest possible detail in this impression evidence. And so you move your flash up and down and around so that you can get these pictures. These are pictures of shoe prints and tire tracks, but there are major problems here. The scales are much too small, and getting comparison quality pictures off of these is going to be very difficult and or impossible, because a shoe print is usually somewhere between 12 and 16 inches, and the running length of a tire track is 8 feet. So a 2-inch scale is totally inappropriate for this use. This is a casting, and you put your cast up on a table, and then you've got your lights. If you really want to get good at this, you get a Lazy Susan like you would use at a party, so that you've got your chips and dip, and you spin this around so that the people can move around the dip and the chips to get what they want. Well, you light this thing once, and you put your casting on there and leave the lights alone, and you move your casting around so that you can get 4 different angles on this one footprint casting that you've got here. It's a very good technique and works great. This is an example of luminol. Luminol is a carcinogen that we use very sparingly, only when we really need to make blood visible. It works. It does the job. You don't need any additional outside lights to make this work. This is chemiluminescence. It fluoresces on its own. You can refresh it, and because it lasts about 30 to 45 seconds before it's exhausted, and then you can spray it again, but every time you do this, you dilute it, and that's not a good thing. Latent print documentation. If at all possible, leave the fingerprints on the object. Take the prints into the lab. If that's not possible, then you put your scale up there, get parallel to what you're taking a picture of, and take pictures of it before you lift it. And you can make pictures using your digital camera to make automated fingerprint identification system searches, and that's AFIS. But this doesn't work with your cell phone on a damp Pepsi can out there in the field like they show you in some of these other TV programs. That does not happen. There was a story about a person who had committed a murder and had almost gotten away with it up in Washington State. And what had happened is that they found a bloody fingerprint on a bed sheet in a crime scene. And they were having problems because the background pattern of the weave in the bed sheet was interfering with the pattern and the fingerprint. This man had murdered this young woman. They lived in a duplex, and there were fingerprints in the duplex. And they were, she said, well, I asked him to bring stuff in and carry, and he did little maintenance things. And so, yes, his fingerprints are in the crime scene. But the fingerprints on the bed sheet in blood, they went to JPL, the Jet Propulsion Lab in California, and got them to use what is called the fast Fourier format algorithm to remove the background pattern. They can do this, and they were able to remove the weave pattern and be able to see the fingerprint, and they were able to identify the bloody fingerprint and identify it to the suspect. Arson scenes. Arson scenes are my least favorite crime scenes. They are dirty, nasty places, and they are terribly, terribly dangerous. I always carried in my back with me in the back of my vehicle a pair of coveralls, because first thing when I'd get to an arson scene was to pull on my coveralls before I would get anywhere near this scene. I would go and I'd talk nice to the sheriff's people and the fire department, and they always had a turnout coat and a pair of boots for me that I could wear inside these arson scenes. You need to learn to walk in the footsteps of the firemen, because they know where to step and how to walk and where they're going and what they're doing. Respect them. As a young student going through school, I did not have the money to afford a macro lens for my regular camera, so I bought what are called plus lenses. You screw these lenses out on the front edge of your lenses. They are threaded. You get the proper sizes. They're about $75 for a set of 3 of these. And by using these individually or in combination, you can turn your normal lens into a macro lens so that you can do close-up pictures. They work very well. They are cheap. They work. When you're combining 2 of these, you put them together, and so you get a 1 diopter plus 4 diopters to a plus 5. You place them in descending order. So you put the strongest one closest to the lens and the lesser ones going out. And you use a relatively small aperture because you need all the depth of field that you can possibly get when you're doing this. The close-up lens, number 1, shows the amount of magnification that you can get with the number 1 close-up lens, and then you have the number 2 close-up lens, and then you have the combination of all of the close-up lenses in the next picture. It works very well, and when you're working with a very limited budget, as I did while I was going through school, this was a good thing. And here we go. This is how the people at Disney deal with processing a crime scene. We've got Snow White here. She obviously had a toxic apple in her mouth. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me.